In a live video on Instagram, I took the baby out of the crib and at the same time showed my followers my perfect tummy. I was asked how I got my perfect body back so quickly after giving birth. Well, I'll tell you about my super diet in the next live video. I turned off the camera and handed the baby to my nanny Lena in disgust. Lena, put him away. He stinks. Who gave birth to him at all? Couldn't they have given birth to a prettier baby? I hate children, but this is a hype topic. So a year ago, I decided to find a surrogate mother. She did all the dirty work while I posted pictures with a fake belly in stories. Speaking of fake bellies, I asked Lena to throw them out immediately to make room in the closet for new clothes. And don't forget to clean up. The house is full of dust. But she replied that she would not do this. She had other duties. She was a nanny, not a cleaner. No way. Servants are servants. I threatened Lena that I would fire her if she didn't complete the assignment. With that, Lena obediently left the room. There were a couple of hours left before the next live video, so I quickly put on a short top that exposed my toned tummy. Everything was going great until one of the followers left a comment. Kiss, your stomach has terrible fat rolls. What fat rolls? But then I was flooded with comments that I would better look in the mirror first, and then stream. It hit me like an electric shock. I quickly got my bearings and said that I had technical problems. I interrupted the live video and in fear, rushed to the mirror. I thought it was the light, but no. My stomach really did look bigger, and there were some nasty fat rolls. What the hell was going on? Okay, calm down. I googled what the reason of fast weight gain could be. The portal about an inconspicuous pregnancy was the first to open in the search results, and I clicked on it. I hadn't had a boyfriend in a long time. I spent all my time on Instagram, but reading the forum, I came across some wild information that one girl got knocked up in a pool. Maybe it's the same for me. I go to the pool. I put on the first hoodie I saw and rushed to the doctor's office. The doctor did an ultrasound and said that there was no pregnancy, but there was a slight obesity in the waist area. Slight obesity? I said that I had a proper diet, and I had a couple of servants preparing everything for me. This couldn't be happening. The doctor replied that many patients ate their problems in a half-asleep state and then did not remember anything about it. I walked out of the clinic. Everything was a blur. Was I a lunatic? I couldn't think straight. I was necessary to understand everything as soon as possible, so I decided to experiment, and for this, I rushed to the store. There, with trembling hands, I picked up a jar of Nutella from the shelf. I wanted to leave it in the refrigerator overnight and see if the jar was open in the morning. What if I really went to the refrigerator at night, half asleep, and ate? A shiver ran down my spine, as if someone was watching me. Haters would destroy me if they saw what I was buying here. But some weird chick at the checkout was staring at Nutella and then at me. After a couple of seconds, she shouted loudly, "Nancy Kiss also likes sweets." God, that was the last thing I needed. I threw the money to the cashier and covering my face with my hands, literally ran to the parking lot. But this crazy chick rushed after me with a phone in her hands. No, don't you dare shoot me. I got caught on someone's car and almost fell. And the alarm went off all over the parking lot. After running another 100 meters, I found my car. Chick was not far behind. I sat behind the wheel and peeled out, almost grazing her. When I came home, I looked so bad that Nanny Lena immediately asked anxiously what had happened. Taking a deep breath, I told her about the crazy woman in the store. Lena hugged me and said that was the downside of fame. Lena used to dream of meeting me on the street too. Now she worked in my house. I took a deep breath and calmed down a little. Thank God I hid my face from the follower. But the phone started bursting with notifications. They poured one after another. Hundreds of users marked me on some photo. With growing anxiety, I opened the post and saw myself from behind. The sweatshirt I accidentally grabbed turned out to be a branded sweatshirt with my Instagram nickname at Nancy Kiss. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that I looked fat in that photo. Very fat. They wrote that I was just a fatso. And my diet was a complete fraud. Followers began to unfollow one by one. My Instagram was already emptying. My life was collapsing before my eyes, and my stomach was getting bigger. I didn't know what was going on, and it was driving me crazy. Lying in bed, I didn't scroll through my Instagram feed for the first time in my life, but instead hoped to get to sleep and forget about this nightmare. All night I dreamed that I swelled up like a huge balloon and finally burst. The pop woke me up. There was a sticky cold sweat on my forehead. Getting out of bed, I immediately looked at my stomach. It already really looked like a pregnant woman's. I rushed to the refrigerator, but the Nutella wasn't touched. And I saw a missed call from John, my agent. Trying not to panic, I called back. John was casual, but he was trying to find out why my sweatshirt with my nickname was so tight around my sides. I made excuses that it was just an angle. The sweatshirt shrank after washing. John reminded me of the live video I'd promised my followers. In 3 days, I had to talk about my diet in a stream with advertising partners. 3 days before the live video. It was urgent to do something with the stomach. I worked myself out and drank only the hot water Lena left at my door. But no matter how hard I tried, there were fewer followers. And I got fatter and fatter. Soon I couldn't even fit into a tracksuit. When I was a few hours away from the live video, I realized that my methods were not working. Then I rushed to the shapewear store. Instagram had not paid for a week. There was still some money on the card. I bought a huge corset with it. I couldn't believe I was buying it for myself. When I got home, I laced myself so hard I could barely breathe, but I still struggled into my widest hoodie. I was completely broken, but I gathered my strength, chose a good angle, and started the live video. As soon as I was live streaming, the haters immediately bombarded me with comments that I not only had a stomach, but also my brain was swollen with fat. They were furious that I decided to show up on Instagram in such a form, wrote that they were disappointed in me. I could not resist, interrupted stream and began to sob in the next room. A child immediately began to cry. Lena came in and told me that there was always a chance to make things right. Maybe I just needed to change my attitude. iMotion screamed that she was not hired to be a smartass, so she could get out of my house. When she left, I sat down at my laptop to play Bubble Shooter to calm down, and wow, I saw a dozen letters from advertisers. Finally, they showed up. But there were reports that all contracts with me were finally terminated. I was out of money. With trembling hands, I dialed my agent. "What am I going to do now, John?" He was silent. And then with a sigh, he said that he had to stop working with me. "Will you leave me too?" At this, he sarcastically congratulated with the second baby and hung up. I needed a distraction, so I decided to take a walk. I don't know how long I wandered around the city, but when I got home, I saw that the door to the apartment was wide open. Where was Lena? Damn, how could I forget? I sent her away myself. The apartment was a complete ruin. Clothes, some garbage and dirty diapers were scattered everywhere. The smell was just awful, and from the room came the heart-rending cry of a child. What am I supposed to do about it? I ran to the baby as fast as I could. "Leo, what's wrong with you?" I tried to feed him, and suddenly I realized he was so small and helpless. I began to sob softly in despair and the realization of a new feeling. My God. This was my baby, even though he was carried by another woman. How could I be so indifferent? Suddenly, Leo held out his hands to me. My heart skipped a beat. I realized that now we were the only ones who had each other, and I held him tightly to my heart and whispered it to him softly. Leo seemed to understand me and smiled sadly in response. After a few weeks, I couldn't imagine my life without Leo. I also posted photos with him, but I forgot about building a following. Surprisingly, my audience began to grow by itself. By the way, I also lost weight pretty quickly. I still don't understand what happened to my stomach. I was feeding Leo once, and I saw a comment under my Instagram photo. Lena was on the avatar. She wrote that she was glad that I gave up the fake life. Already in the PM, Lena admitted that every day she mixed high-calorie supplements in my food. It made me fat so fast. I was angry and wanted to write her something spiteful in response. After all, it was Lena who made me understand that even if all the people in the world turned their backs on me, I would still be the kindest and most beautiful person in the world. And this is my son, Leo.
Hello kiddies, you're on the Mary Nice channel. This issue is going to be a bomb. Today we shoot in my mansion while my folks are out on business. I accepted a challenge from a top blogger and to participate in a challenge for the most reckless act. And of course, I will beat them all as usual. Now I'm going to burn down the house of our servants and we'll find out how long it will take to burn down completely. Mary Nice! Yoo-hoo! This is my van. Want a cool fire show? Please like it. Chris, set it on fire! Woohoo! Oops, Mom and Dad arrived. I think I should go. I could hear my parents' voices. It was like a dream. Mom was crying and Dad said to her,
"She's completely crazy because of her channel. It's time to end this." I have an idea.
Then I lost consciousness. Where am I? What's going on here? And why does it smell so bad? Then suddenly, a shaggy girl ran in and dragged me somewhere. I told her, "Let go, kid." But she didn't seem to hear me. My head was hurting so hard. I guess I hit a pole when I was running away from my parents. Suspiciously, they weren't around. When I finally wriggled out of this fool's arm, it dawned on me. This is some kind of closed cult. So I just need to offer them money and they will let me go in peace. Suddenly, some dressed-up woman asked me why I wasn't working yet, and she called me a mean girl. She was probably the founder of this cult, but I didn't want to stay there for another minute. I ran through the crowd, shoving everyone away and calling them nuts. But then, two big guys grabbed me. These two forest scarecrows dragged me somewhere. They were not even afraid of my threats of calling the police. Suddenly, I saw a guy on the road with bloody wounds all over his back, as if whip marks. A terrible and even gloomy oak tree, a suspicious rope, and a barrel appeared ahead. And then I realized this was the gallows. But they weren't going to hang me, were they? I made a joke like, "Oh guys, you decided to push me on the swing," but the joke didn't go down well. And that's when I realized it was serious. I begged these bastards to let me go because I was still too young and had not gained 1 million subscribers on YouTube. I don't think this was a cult, but a bunch of maniacs, cannibals that the FBI did know about. I was put on a barrel, put on the news, and then my whole life flashed before my eyes. I sobbed like it was the last time, and I remembered my parents. They would miss me. I prayed loudly and choked on snot, shouting that I was seeing the sky and the sun for the last time. Honey, can we stop now? I think we've gone too far.
Wait, that hasn't taught her anything yet. You know I have everything under control.
Suddenly, someone from the crowd said, "Mistress, a slave is worth 10 gold. It's expensive. Can you show mercy? The treasury has got its limits. She's got a bump on her forehead. She bruised in the field yesterday, and that's what's going on." I don't know who it was. And why did he call me a slave? It seems that these were not sectarians, but fans of role-playing games, and their costumes were appropriate. I was released and sent to plow in a cornfield. No, to a giant field. I was teamed with a mad girl by the name of Germanica, who dragged me into the yard in the morning. Where did they get a field like this? Germanica was picking the cobs so skillfully, and I noticed some pockmarks on her hands. She said it was from the bubonic plague. Plague? But we were told at school that the epidemic ended 500 years ago. Then I began to doubt that it was a cult. What if I had somehow ended up in the past? So everything looked like they were from ancient times, and the manners of communication were like, "And this stupid hostess in a wig." But I didn't have any strength to analyze everything. I wanted to eat wildly. So I went to the apple tree to at least satisfy my hunger. Germanica yelled something after me, like we were going to have a problem. Oh, the whole world could wait. I needed to get a bite to eat. Lunch was interrupted by the peacemaker who saved my life. It turned out that he was the estate manager named Avitus. Instead of helping me reach for the reddest apples, he started talking about some of my duties, a plan, and a punishment for unauthorized excommunication. But I wasn't going to talk to someone who only rated me 10 pieces of gold. That's what I told him. Our girl doesn't change at all. Look how she communicates with a manager.
I've thought of something.
Of course, I did agree to the plan, and that was thrown into the dungeon. I wonder if these people knew about human rights. It was so cold in the cell, but soon there were 2 of us breathing in the cell. Germanica did fulfill her plan, and we were both deprived of lunch. Barbaric methods that really stretched back 1,000 years. I just couldn't figure out how I got into the past and how to fix it. Suddenly, the manager of Vitus appeared and surreptitiously slipped me a bowl of soup. How caring! Apparently, he really didn't want the 10 pieces of gold to starve to death. He had to feed me. Germanica stared at my stew like that, but I wasn't going to share it. Everyone survives as best they can. Natural selection, you know. Day after day, I was driven out into the fields, forced me to trample on grapes, drag water. If I objected, they threatened to beat me or feed me to the dogs. And almost every night I slept in this damn dungeon. There were more and more jobs, and we were all mercilessly exploited. Suddenly, I saw an Apple Watch on a slave's hand. At first, I was speechless, and then I ran after him shouting, "Stop, dude!" I didn't notice when I knocked over a vat of grapes.
Are you shitting me? Why the hell does an actor have an Apple Watch on? Quickly, stop her. Otherwise, you can forget about the money for this show.
In short, I was literally knocked down like in the best rugby matches. And of course, I was an idiot because it was just a rag on the slave's hand. A rag, not an Apple Watch. Because I was really in the past and I was going to die here. Security stated to find out who knocked over the vat, and of course, I lied. I pointed at Germanica. She knocked over the vat. I had nothing to do with it. I especially enjoyed the sunset that night. But then, Avitus came up to me and dragged me to the BAM to talk. He began to tell me that fellow workers shouldn't slander each other. I reasonably objected. It was easy for him to speak. He was free. All I did was wash my hands until they bled and freeze my butt off in the dungeon.
So, what's going on with the YouTube broadcast? Are views growing? After all, she wanted it so much.
Yes. She's a star! The lecture was abruptly interrupted by the smell of bumming, and then we saw the grain BAM was on fire, just like my servants' house doused in gasoline. It turned out that the owner's son got drunk and decided to bum a year's supply of wheat. What a fool! But then, the asshole took it all out on me, as if I was the idiot that I set fire to a whole grain BAM for no reason at all. I knew then that I was going to be hanged for sure. I was thrown into the dungeon where poor Germanica was already languishing. She was covered in bruises. Fiends! But I didn't behave any better either. A person was unfairly accused and physical violence was awarded. And all because of me. Avitus, out of kindness of his heart, came to feed me again. And I fed the soup to Germanica, begging her forgiveness. In this state, Germanica couldn't do the job. I was worried they'd hang her from that oak tree. In the morning, I plucked up the courage and asked the hostess to work for 2, and I was told to trim all the sheep before the sun went down. I was afraid of the volume of work, but there was nothing I could do. I had to get to work. One by one, the sheep were shod by my hands. I was surprised at my own skill, and I didn't keep track of the time. At sunset, I was left alone with the last sheep. Now I could only hope for the mercy of the hostess. I was given no mercy, and I was captured by the attendants. But for some reason, they let me pass the dungeon. By order of the owner, I was assigned 30 strikes on the back with a huge whip. But I decided that I would stop teasing everyone here with my tears. I would just stand there and not even scream. The whip swung behind me, and I squeezed my eyes shut and heard it hit the ground. I opened my eyes and saw my mom and dad running toward me. What? Seriously? Was it a hoax? I couldn't believe my eyes. The whole team came up to me and told me everything. Germanica didn't die from the beatings in the dungeon, and the owner was a very nice woman. And this Avitus? Oh, he's a traitorous beady. I sent him to hell. I had an indescribable experience. After all, I really believed that I was in the past. It turns out that all this time that it was a live broadcast in YouTube, and it got millions of views. On the way home, I couldn't calm down and swallowed tears, kissed my parents, and continued to be shocked that this show was arranged by them. I kept asking my parents, did she see me trampling the grapes and picking calm and shearing sheep? We laughed so much. And then Avitus, whose real name is Alex, sent me a text message. I may be a bastard, but you're no better. Dinner? I must admit, I'm used to him feeding me. Why not?